Welcome to Make Your Damn Bed podcast. My name is Julie America, and today I'm joined by some amazing guests. If y'all want to introduce yourselves.
So I'm Adam Jones. Both of us are called Adam, which makes it easy, but probably a bit harder for the listeners. And we got over here.
That's me, Adam Ashton.
Nice to meet y'all. You just wrote a book, didn't you?
We did. So we finished a book. It's called The Shit They Never Taught You. It puts together the best 115 books we've ever come across, across 9 different parts and 32 different lessons. So we've been doing a podcast for about 5 or 6 years now. So we've read and reviewed, I'd say, about 300 books. Interviewed a whole bunch of authors as well. So what we've done is we've scraped all the best stuff that we've come across and all the best books, and really just put it in one place for people to go and read.
It's great for me because I can't get through a lot of things. I have ADHD. I'm like a moth, and I have a million books that I've started and never finished. So I was really so pleased to start reading yours. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I want. A Reader's Digest version of everything that I've wanted to read. Great.
I like
It's fantastic. I'm starting to realize more and more that some books don't deserve to make it to the end, but I'm glad that you're getting the best bits at least out of our short snippets.
Yeah, I feel that way a lot with self-help books. Sometimes they feel a little repetitive unless there's actionable items in there. I'm like, okay, I get it. I like the way you've sold this to me. And it helps to read and keep being reassured on. I don't think there's any problem with finishing those books. My brain where I'm like, I already know where this is going. I can't get through where it's one of those where it's nice to have someone do it for me where I'm like, oh yeah, I got it from the synopsis. We're good. What's your most memorable episode that y'all go back to in your head about?
Well, we've done 300 or so. We've done so many episodes, so there's so much to go through. I'd say the most memorable for me is I'd probably go back to Robert Greene, just because he's our favorite author. Both of us don't align on all authors we come across, but we do agree on Robert Greene. So he wrote the books 48 Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature, Mastery, Seduction, and 33 Strategies of War. And we think it is writes on a next level. Like you were saying, Julie, before, some self-help books, they kind of blabber along and just waste your time as you read it. But Robert Greene, they're big books, but there's no fat in them whatsoever. You get excited towards the very end, which is pretty rare. Anyway, just to be able to chat with him for 1 hour and just pick his brain, talk about things that are on our mind, a few personal life experiences, and just to see what he's like. So I think that was really memorable. Just have the opportunity to speak to with so many mentors through books, but he's one that we got a good chance to speak to.
When you say memorable, one definitely jumps to mind for me, probably for quite a different reason, but definitely memorable. We used to start at the first year or two of the show. We used to start the episode. I don't know why, but we used to start with going, yes, 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 yelling as pretty much as loud as we could into the microphones. And we kept that in the actual introduction, so people would often get their eardrums perforated when listening to the show. There was one time when it didn't go so well for us because it was like a 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. We ripped out our big yes, yes, yes. And about 6 minutes into the episode, someone comes banging on the door. The next door neighbor comes yelling out, starts yelling, "Shut the hell up! Open the door! I'm coming in!" And then and we absolutely crapped ourselves. And safe to say we were too scared to open the door, but we just told him, okay, we'll be a bit quieter next time. But he was not pleased.
He was so aggressive, and normally we'd like to think we're a bit more tough than we were, but the whole lot just got picked up on the recording as well. Just us wimping out to this person, just banging on the door, us apologizing.
Yeah, there's a record of it now too. That is so aggressive. I'm going to come in there. Wow. All right, relax. So you don't do the yelling anymore? Is that because I only listened to the first couple episodes?
No, that was the last time.
Noted. I'll do it. That's funny. Do you always have authors on? Not always, right? Not on every episode.
Nah, not every episode. So we always do the book, and then at the start we just get to any author, and I guess over time we put more effort into the episodes because that's what based on our feedback, the listeners prefer the book episodes rather than the author interviews. But having said that, if we get to speak to a really top level author, we'll never say no to someone like that. Like quite recently, Daniel Kahneman we had on, who's a Nobel Prize winner and author of Thinking Fast and Slow. So, if an opportunity like that comes up, you're not going to say no to that. So we're always going to be quite selective with some authors we have on.
Yeah, I'm sure some listeners enjoy that too. It's probably just the format preference. That's cool. Are there any books that you read a book a week then? Are that it's a weekly podcast, correct?
Yeah, every week we're ripping out books. Sometimes we have to throw in a few shorties in there. Sometimes we've got like the 500, 600 pager, which at the start we couldn't get through it in a week, but now we're able to sort of smash through those in a week. We sort of trained up. We've built ourselves up to read, not necessarily read fast, but read quite often,
Yeah.
read a lot throughout the day.
That's impressive. I'm tripping a little bit on how many books you're getting through where I'm over here like, "Oh, I'm getting through 2 a year, maybe," and I thought I was of the good ones in my friend group, honestly.
Well, that's it, Julie. We started like we were both a bit like that, 10 books a year, and we both at that stage had some value from reading and learnt a whole bunch of things and made some pretty big changes in our lives at that stage. And we thought there's so much value in it, but when we read a book, we forget the whole thing after we finish it. Or probably I forget it a lot more than Asho does because he's a lot smarter than me. And then the other part of it is just keeping yourselves accountable. Like if we can get through 60, 60, 50 books a year, there's no way we could do it on our own. So we thought if we keep ourselves accountable by recording a podcast each week, then we have to finish it to be ready for the sake of the podcast. So yeah, that was really one of the big reasons we got into it in the first place.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Are there any books that you were fully regretting getting into? You don't have to rat out the author right now, but I want you to get to the tea, the hot, the gossip. What books were a struggle to get through, even though you're glad you did it, of course. We can be honorable.
I'm willing to go straight forward. I'm just gonna go straight, and because it was probably 2 books in the last 2 weeks as well. Probably the first 2 books that I haven't finished for the podcast. So normally, like we'll read every single book. Both of us read the whole thing, and because it's for the podcast, I figure you have to read the whole book. So even though I might be battling through it, I'll always finish it off. But these two were the first two that I didn't actually finish off. One was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which was just like a trippy a dude riding on his motorcycle through the through across America and talking about the birds that he was seeing flying past, and talking about when if his motorcycle wasn't working so well that he had to get off and start tinkering with the machinery. And I want to give up a quarter of the way through, but I was like, I'm going to push through. We're going to do a podcast. I'm sure it gets good. At halfway, I had to put it down.
I'll have to pull you up there, Ashto. Julie, you probably know the difference of a straw man and a steel man. So a straw man is where you put up the weak version of it and you take it down, and then the steel man you put up the strong version of it to build it up. That was definitely a straw man.
Have you got a Steelman version of it? I don't think I could possibly do a Steelman version of that book.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, a lot of the point was just the so there is a lot of fluff in the book where he's just driving through the mountains, but that's actually to prove a point. There's like actually two modes of living. So you got the classic and romantic style. So classic is the style that just breaks everything down. You want to learn the lesson straight away and get through it. With the romantic side, it's a lot more. So say classic being nonfiction, romantic being a lot more about the fictional side where you're actually going through the journey and you're being present, and you're being in the moment. So I guess what the whole point of it is saying not everything is all about just breaking everything down where everything's just listed out, in the step by step process. There are moments where you're just going through the flow and going through the moments. And that's what it demonstrated in the book. I don't think it could have demonstrated the point of that by just having it, breaking it down, saying, like I did then, saying things are classic, things are romantic. This is how the world's broken up. The whole point of the book is to say you can't really do that. So um, that's what I think is because I'm a structural engineer, so my classic brain wants to break things down as well, and it was difficult getting through. But I think at the very end, it kind of clicked, saying, "All right, that's the point." And yeah, there's a lot to learn from it. I thought in a non-direct way, of course.
It's very much like you're reading a book about suffering, but you have to suffer through it to get the
To
point.
understand it, you have to experience it,
Yeah,
not
he's
just
like,
learn
"I'm
about it.
making it really tedious for you for a reason." That's great. What's your most popular episode, or do you have an episode that you, like, send people to if they're first introducing themselves to the podcast?
I think probably most popular in terms of downloads would be the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and deservedly so. I think it's one of those books that's like 30 or 40 years old. Everyone's probably heard about it. Everyone might have heard one or two of the habits. Everyone's probably sat through a career professional development day where some speaker comes in and quotes Stephen Covey. And you might have had a little taste of it, but not a whole lot of people have actually committed to reading the whole thing. So I think that's definitely a popular one for us because everyone wants to know what those 7 habits are and not have to read the book, or that maybe they get inspired and then go and read the full thing and learn all 7 for themselves.
I remember laughing at how long that book was to have 7 habits in it and being like, "Really? Why? Why are we perseverating the same way?" But I get it. So are you full-time podcast friends? You said you're a structural engineer. Do you have a second job as well?
Yeah, I'd say this is the second job or the third job, but basically, yeah, working full time in digital marketing as the quote unquote real world job, and then podcasting is, I think it's still almost a hobby on the side. It's a hobby mixed with a job, mixed with a business type of thing. So we've got, obviously we do a whole bunch of episodes. We've got the weekly book episodes where we have to read a book every single week and talk about it. Plus, then we spent 18 months almost writing this big ass 700-page book, as well. So it's definitely more than a hobby, but not yet a full time job.
It's huge. I was, like, wanting to take it on my flight with me, but I was not.
It'll put you over the limit, yeah.
It's a massive book. Y'all have really put the work into it. It's beautiful. It's really well done. I'm not halfway through it yet. Who knows if I'll ever finish it. I need a synopsis book of this book. I need y'all to write a second, smaller version breaking down this one for people like me who can't commit. But it's really great. What was the most tedious part of, like, book writing?
For me, I'd say the first cover to canvas. So the first iteration was pretty fast because and felt pretty good because it's so exciting, and pretty quick. So it's like that's your first 2 months of work, right? And you think you're 80 or 90% there. I think the most tedious part was getting it from 98% to 100% right, or the third iteration of it, just the little things he didn't expect was going to come up. Like another thing Daniel Kahneman talks about is the planning fallacy. Whenever you're doing a new project, there's all these unknown unknowns that you can't anticipate in advance. I don't think we realize how much is involved with typesetting and design, making it beautiful, making the iterations there. The book editing process at the end, it's multiple goes at the editing to make sure it's right, and then of course factoring in the audiobook. So just that final stretch was just super tedious and took a long time, which we didn't expect to be there at the start, I'd say.
Yeah, that part, especially when you are on the first go of anything, you feel so confident because it really does. You're like, I did everything that I need to do. And then it's just the stuff that you're not excited about, but it can't go any further. Interesting. You're the same boat?
Yeah, definitely just the nitty gritty. The fun stuff was also the challenging stuff. Was coming up with the new ideas and starting it from scratch, but then taking it from almost done to actually done. That last hurdle was definitely the both the longest and the most difficult.
Do you have any advice for someone who does want to integrate reading more into a lifestyle?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to, if you want to read more, okay, you definitely have to read something that you want to read as a starting point. Don't read the book that you think that you should read, because then it just becomes like high school. You're reading Shakespeare because your teacher says you have to do it and write an essay about it. So don't go that path. Don't read the book that everyone else is reading because you think you have to. Read the book that you actually are genuinely interested and genuinely curious about learning about. That's definitely a vital step one. And then I think the other important step is not seeing reading as this massive mammoth task that you have to do, where you have to get perfectly prepared. At 8 o'clock at night, you've had your dinner, you prepare a tea for yourself, you light the candles, you set the mood, you've got the rainforest music, and then you sit down and for like an hour and a half, and you view reading as this massive mammoth task. I think instead of that, if you view reading as something that you can inject throughout the day to almost like as a time filler, so filling the waiting time rather than seeing it as a standalone task where you have to dedicate time for. I think that's definitely a key.
I like it, Ash. Show. I'll probably add something to that. Just making yourself enjoy it. Like at the very start for me, before the habit started, the way I did that probably, not intentionally at all, was just tying it up with something that you enjoy throughout the day. Like I enjoyed my morning coffee at a cafe, and let myself spend 45 minutes having my favorite coffee, or spending that bit of extra money on a coffee at a cafe, and with that reading, so you'd actually enjoy the getting to the cafe and doing it that way. So I think one of our books we've read, which is Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and he also talks about this, like cue, craving, reward. So if you reward yourself for what you're trying to habit at the end, you might actually start craving the reward beforehand. So you end up craving reading at the cafe if you tie the reward into it together as well.
Dope. Yeah, that's actually what Make Your Damn Bed podcast is meant to be. It's supposed to be the podcast that you pair with habits you don't want to do so that you start looking forward to them and like associating the two. That is a really great task. And I do like the idea that you were saying, Asho, about not making it so ritualistic,
Yeah.
because I am that person where I'm like, I have to set them, I have to do this. And so that makes transitions so much harder, because I'm like, well, if I do this, then I need to do this. And I also need to set up this. And oh, I didn't clean this. And it becomes another to-do list rather than something I look forward to, like you said. So that is really helpful.
Have you read that book, Jonesy? You read it. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Make Your Bed.
Have you read it, Julie? Have you heard of it?
I have not. I have not, but it's been so many people have sent it, or like sent me that recommendation now, because they're like, "Oh, you've definitely read this." I'm like, "No, I just made this podcast not thinking." I googled it to make sure it wasn't a podcast first. That's all I did.
Yeah, it's not. We were ragging. Asher ragged on a book earlier. I'll probably rag on this one a little bit. I didn't enjoy the book anyway. It was
It's military stuff, right?
yeah, he stole your title, Julie. I think you can take him down. He's a big Navy SEAL, but I think you got him covered.
Yeah, those guys are notoriously weak men, so it's okay. I could hurt him emotionally, I'm sure. I Yeah, that's noted. I'm picky with my nonfiction. I really do have to be invested in the thing. It has to be something that I know is going to better my life, or else it does feel like a struggle to get through if I can't relate directly to it. I think that's why I'm so fascinated. So how do you decide what books you're going to read? Do you take recommendations? Are you getting them from just stuff you've been putting off?
Yeah, I think I've got like an almost infinite, or seemingly infinite list. It seems like every book I read, they'll name drop 2 or 3 other books or authors. So then those ones will catch my interest as well. So one book now then becomes 2 or 3. Plus, listeners might send in a Instagram message or an email saying, "Hey, you should read this book." Plus, then just other things that pop up. Whether I'm listening to a podcast and someone recommends a certain book, I think I've probably read like 350, but there's like at least another 1,000 already sitting like on my Goodreads where I've ticked that I want to read it. And then probably of those 1,000, there's probably 500 sitting physically on my shelves that I've bought
Yeah.
that I'll eventually read someday but haven't read yet.
Same for you, Jonesy?
Yeah, it's same for me, Julie. It's I think just buying more. I'll probably try and just focus on buying more books than I'm reading, just so eventually when I'm looking for that next book, I've already got so many that are ready to go, and you can flick through it, and so you end up spending a lot of money on books. But I think what we've probably realized at this point is it's worth the investment. The return on investment of a book can be off the charts. So yeah, got a bookshelf that's ready to go, and just flick through about 3 or 4 or 5 before I choose what's next to read. And yeah, just over the years, I've just built up a huge stack of to read. And I think as you read more and more books, like with curiosity, it's a bit like Hydra. You chop one head off a topic, and then 2 or 3 more grow back, and then you chop a head off that, and then 3 more grow back after that. So I think at this point now, the Hydra monster, it's quite a big monster with a lot of different heads sticking off it.
So now I have the same opposite question. How do you narrow it down? It's like Cheesecake Factory menu. Oh, y'all probably don't have those in Australia. Good riddance. You don't need them. But it's too big of a menu.
No, I thought it was fantastic. I went to the US. It must have been 2015 or something. And there was I went there like 2 or 3 times because it was fantastic. I thought it was great.
I always roast it because their menu's just doing too much. It is like a novel,
It's
and I'm
thick.
like, "Okay, we get it. It's too many items. Like, are you is it what kind of cuisine are we working with here?" And I feel like I struggle because of my decision making. I don't wanna miss out on something. I don't know, it's hard, so I need to be narrowed down.
That's
So
so good. I think for me, I've got multiple different sections. So there's like they'll move higher or lower up the shelf the more interested I'm reading them. So there's probably 10 that could be the next ones on the go that I've got to. So it's almost like it's like a gradual culling process. It's like I've got the big 300 to 500 odd books sitting there. Then I've selected out, okay, these are like probably the next 30 odd that I want to read. And then higher up the shelf, there's probably like the next six that I want to read. And then I'll sort of pick from there.
We're also constrained to, so, our personal interests, but also what the making sure for our listeners we're getting the wide variety of books. So if we haven't done a personal finance book in a while, then we have to go to that section or go to Amazon and Goodreads and start looking for a good book. And then we'll always vet the book before we put it up on the podcast as well. So it's a mix of personal interests and what we're after next, but also making sure for the listeners and I guess ourselves as well that we're getting that wide range of books covering all topics.
are there books that you've ever, set aside and you're like, "I'm definitely coming back to this at some point. This is the one. I need to reread this every couple of years."
I think for me, there's probably a couple. It seems like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. We've probably read 3 or 4 times, and it seems like every time a different habit jumps out at us is like the key habit that applies to our lives at that point in time. Um, I think ones that I definitely want to reread is like the Tao Te Ching, which is like just like short ancient Chinese wisdom. It's only like 80 pages, and the pages are super short as well. But I feel like that I think it might be pretty profound. I think I wasn't smart enough when I first read it, so I feel like if I read it, in 5 years' time, I might be a little bit smarter, and it might make even more sense to me. Um, something like that, something or like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, even like the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I feel like throughout the different stages of your career, different laws would jump out as being more important than others. So there are probably three that I'd like to revisit.
Yeah, for me it would be one recently, which was only a 70-page book, which I didn't finish. So think about we easily finished 500-600 pages books, but somehow couldn't get through this 70-page book, and it's also from my favorite author or one of my favorite authors as well. So get that right. But anyway, Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking was the most impactful book of my whole entire life. Changed absolutely everything. Quit smoking. After that, read How to Control Your Alcohol, which made me quit alcohol for a couple of years. So 2 year stints. So again, helping me get my shit together and just getting healthier and just getting things in place. Now, the third one was quite recently because after kicking those two addictions, there's always something else that kind of goes into place. And over the years, I just coffee. I'd have at my peak, 8 coffees a day. Now it's probably 3 to 5, something in that range. But anyway, it affects my sleep and affects so many things. And his book, The Easy Way to Control Your Caffeine, is only 80 pages, and I couldn't get to the end of it because I was just too afraid of what my life's going to be without coffee, despite all the benefits that I know are on the table. So one day I'll get back to the coffee one, but not this year anyway.
That's truly one of my things. I think too is it's less a commitment to finishing is it when I really love or enjoy a book or even shows I have like this, I won't finish. If I have other people holding me accountable, I will. But if I'm doing it alone, I have found myself people ask me if I've watched a series and I'm like, "Yeah, I did, but I'm 20 minutes from the ending and I'll never finish it." Because I don't want it to end. I don't want to leave that world that they've built. But I'm also more into like fantasy and like fictional things. So it's usually like the world building is really what drew me in.
Got a trick for you, Julie. My girlfriend wants to strangle me every time I do this, but if I get into a TV show at the start and I know I'm not going to finish it, sometimes I just go straight to YouTube and look up the 20-minute season summary, and it caps it off. So I feel like I've almost watched it. It's cheating. I'd never do it with books, but my girlfriend hates me for it, but a lot of people think I'm an idiot, but I think it's easy thing to do if you know you're not going to finish it. It's just a plan B.
Yeah.
Man of recaps.
I never minded if it's on a petty, like, show like that where I'm like, "I'm not committing to 10 seasons of One Tree Hill. I'm not doing it. I'm not." But I wanna know what happens with the uncle. Yeah, that's great. Are y'all quote people?
I try not to. I feel like it's a little bit wanky. It's it's a it's a little bit lame to be whipping out such and such said this. I think it's better to try to weave it in without being so overt. And I probably don't have a good enough memory to remember all those quotes as well.
We're probably the opposite. Like on the podcast, we should be whipping out quotes on the podcast, but a lot of the time we stuff up the pronunciation of the name, or when you're trying to whip out a quote, you try and get the pronunciation of the name exactly correct, just so you're betraying maximal intelligence. And I think we cook half the names. We got a few bad 1-star reviews because how we pronounce some of the most famous poets and writers in the past. But yeah, we'll wear it.
I host trivia nights sometimes in the before times, and I would be like frantically Googling how to pronounce people's names properly on those like YouTube videos where they'll tell you. And I swear I'd still fumble and I'd have just looked it up and I'm like, I still don't know nothing. The fact that people have the audacity to only post bad reviews on things, like, why are you going to use your energy? You're not posting the good reviews when you feel a good way. Like, I don't know. Don't worry about it. It
There's some
happens.
deep dark psychological stuff in there. Some old trauma that we
Yeah.
probably shouldn't dig up.
Or maybe they should.
Yeah, maybe they should.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to share about the book writing process or like what you're proud of or anything like that?
Yeah, just I'd say books are such. I'd say the most underrated commodity on the planet. Um, so what you can get for $40 and 8 hours reading. For both of us, we've gone through so many three, and every few weeks there's something that we think that we wish we were taught earlier through high school or through our mentors or parents. Um, there's so much out there. So I guess what we tried to do in our book is uncover all the things that weren't taught growing up, and you can get it in this one volume. Um, that's one part of it. You can read it, but there's also the introduction to all the other books out there. So we've got 115 different ones, and it's highly likely that at least one of them is going to have a huge return on investment in your own lives. So yeah, so anyone listening right now, feel free to go out and get in touch and get your hands on the book. Or if you listen to our podcast, you're going to be exposed to a whole bunch of new books that you've probably never come across. Or the ones you've come across, you'll get a nice little recap of the things that you learned when you first read it.
I was saying earlier that my attention span is really short. So I think what you've done is really brilliant. There is limitless information, and I do want to taste, and I'm the tapas queen. I want to try everything and I don't want to miss out. And I think that like having this as a resource to someone like me, and there's a lot of us out there where it's like kind of perfect because I'm not going to commit. I can't read 52 books. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's I can, but I probably will not. Let's be real.
No, no, it's just like the Cheesecake Factory all over again. You can't possibly eat every single meal on that menu. It's not going to happen. So if someone could give you a little taste of theirs, then maybe that's a better way to do it.
Yeah, I think that's especially true of like, your interpretation of anything is based on where you're at. Like you were saying earlier of like reading something in 5 years, you might interpret it differently. And I feel that way about a lot with reading, of finding like what works for you and what is relating to you. But I also think that like with relationships and conversations where like if you have a conflict, usually two people are just right and like you're just on different pages where you're like, yes, I see what you're saying, but this is where I'm coming from. And that's something you can't really read in a book. You have to just experience and like practice. And I think like through hearing other people talk about it in books, it can be really reassuring and helpful and like great to work through. But yeah, if you're not applying it in your life, then what's the point?
For us, the only other thing is it's become almost our motto now is read books and do shit. Is that we reading books is obviously vitally important. Learning that information, taking on a brand new idea is vital. And then probably even more vital, though, is the second half of that equation, which is do shit, is actually go and put it to use. Because I think once you uh, read a book, take an idea, and then actually do something, whether that's in your work, in your personal relationships, and new habits, or just anything that you do to change something about your life for the positive, then you're just going to be inspired to read more and more and more. So yeah, read books, but then definitely do shit with it.
That's incredible too, because it applies to everything I've ever done. Like with comedy, if you get too caught up in comedy, then you aren't living your life and you have nothing to commentate on. And then same with like self-help. Self-help can be a real trap if you get caught up in doing shadow work and like digging up your traumas. I don't know. I think that you can get really caught in just doing work and not applying it to why you wanted to do that work in the first place, which is improving your real life, your the outside world and how you interact with it, you know? I think that that is really great advice on both of them.
I like how you articulated the word articulated as a trap. Um, it can be an absolute trap where you're just reading, and you're feeling like you're being productive. But yeah, that alone, it's not gonna. It's only one half the equation, and you might be trapped, and you might be caught in a state of limbo, um, confused, and actually, not progressing because yeah, as long as you learn something and then you try it out and it may or may not work. Because a lot of the stuff in books, there's a lot of crap that's not true, which seems obvious. Like no one book's the single Bible. Um, Even how some of our favorite books will find a book that says the absolute opposite thing and is equally believable. So I think until you've come across a wide range of books and then actually experimented with the whole things, how it's going to impact your life, then that's the only way you're going to get real value.
Well, beautiful. Other than the podcast, which I'm going to plug on here for sure for you, is there anything else you wanted to promote or plug or just encourage people, leave us with brilliant knowledge from all your reading? This is your moment.
This is it. Man, that's a lot of pressure. Obviously, yeah. Obviously, listen to a podcast, What You Will Learn. Pick out an episode or a book title that tickles your fancy. Also on the website, whatyouwilllearn.com, we've got a free introduction to the book. And the introduction was something we said we wrote the whole book like probably 4 or 5 times. The introduction, I think we did like 12 or 13 times of just going back and refining and making that as good as possible to really sell the idea of reading and really convince someone that reading is something that can change their lives like it's changed ours. So yeah, the free introduction on the website, and then of course the final one is read books and do shit.
Hell yeah. Cool. Did you have anything, Jonesy, you wanted to add on?
Nothing more to add there, Julie. Ash show tied it up together in a nice little bow there. There's one. There'll definitely be an episode that tickles everyone's fancy. So go to our podcast and go and download the intro.
Nice. Yeah, read books and do shit, y'all. I love that. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to send everybody to your podcast
Thank you so
and
much.
I'll let y'all know when this is up. Bye.